I had to condition you, wear down your resistance, make you want me. So I visited you through mental projection.
Hello and welcome to another bad movie review. This time we're looking at The Devil's Hand from 1961. This movie's about an hour and 11 minutes, directed by William J. Holt Jr. and written by Joe Hyams. It stars Linda Christian, Robert Alda, Adrian Welter, and Neil Hamilton, as well as appearances by Gertrude, Astor, and Janine Carmen. This is a bit of a strange film, especially for 1961. It did get approval from the film board at the time, but we start with a Mr. Rick Turner who's dreaming of a mysterious blondish woman who seems to haunt his dreams and keep him up at night, and he finds himself sort of meandering around. We get this little voiceover thing telling us how he just sort of has these dreams and is now feeling compelled to go to this area of town he's never been to, where he goes to a doll shop and sees a mysterious doll that looks, quote, just like her, end quote. But the doll is creepy looking and looks nothing like this woman. In fact, none of the dolls look like who they're supposed to look like. And the shopkeeper, known as Francis Lamont, who's played by Neil Hamilton, says that Turner ordered this doll and brought this picture in to make the doll look like her. Well, that seems weird because he doesn't remember doing that. So then he brings his fiancée by and shows her the doll that's supposed to look just like this lady from his dream, and she ends up seeing a doll that looks just like herself. But it was ordered by somebody else, and it's not for sale. Things get weird from there. The doll shop owner is apparently in a cult, and he uses the doll like a voodoo doll. Then the girl from the dream starts talking to Rick, and she tells him to bring her the doll and to get the information on where she is and who she is from the doll shop owner, who apparently knows who she is because Rick gave him that information allegedly. And the doll had already been paid for, so seems kind of weird, but he goes along with it anyway. He picks up the doll, and that's how he meets Bianca, who, by the way, has a mute Tibetan monk as a manservant, who she explains was in some sort of bloody death cult. Because that's normal. That should be one red flag right there. Aside from the whole scenario with the doll shop, if you meet someone and they're like, oh, my manservant will bring us dinner. By the way, he's a mute Tibetan that was in a bloody death cult that murdered people. Yeah, were you really going to stay for dinner? Because you're probably gonna die. That doesn't seem like a really good idea to linger. But movie's gotta go on, so the plot has to happen. So she explains to him how she can project herself into his dreams, and she also has one of those dolls of him. Not creepy at all to have a 1.5 foot tall doll of the person you just met already in your house. Yeah, that's not off-putting and weird at all. No, it's totally normal. Just go with it. She admits that she's in a cult, and she tells him a little bit about it and how the doll shop owner is also a member of this cult, and that leads to smooching, because why wouldn't it? You know, there's nothing sexier than a woman who admits that she's in a cult. She has a manservant who's in some creepy obscure cult you've never heard of, and she's worshiping some devil god. That's how they describe him. And the guy that you met earlier is also in the cult, and that's not weird at all. Also, she appears in your dreams and tells you to do stuff. Yeah, time to make out. That's totally arousing. There are so many red flags on the field that nobody could play a game unless it's to pick up red flags. Now, she says that he has to be indoctrinated into the cult before any more smooching can happen, and he's like, okay, I'll do that. So he joins this cult, and yeah, that seems really smart. And he goes to the meeting to get indoctrinated, and there's a sacrifice test because it's a full moon. So anybody that might be disloyal gets tested by this overhead pinwheel of death that has swords attached to it, only one of which is real. And the devil god will decide if they live or die, allegedly. And there's like little foot pedals they use to control it, descending and ascending, which is a little inconsistent from what I could tell. It's a little convoluted. There's also somebody spying on them who apparently works for a magazine. And in this cult, which by the way meets in the basement of the doll store, has tapestries on the wall, walls, lots of carpets, and big fluffy cushions to sit on, which are really bad for lumbar support, so not a really good seating choice. And there's somebody that dances and some guy that plays the bongos, and it looks like a hippie cult. There's like a statue of their version of some sort of like Aphrodite type character, and then there's a Tibetan statue of the Buddha or somebody that really doesn't fit in, because they're like, let's find something obscure and oriental looking to throw in this movie and make it look mysterious. Oh, there's also a bunch of those dolls on a shelf in the back because it wasn't creepy enough already. Rick starts to spend all his time with Bianca because now he's in love with her suddenly, and he goes back to tell Donna that, you know, he's breaking off the engagement after like a week of not seeing her, and she's like, I understand you don't want to be with me because I'm an invalid, because of the stuff the cult's done to her. It's very convoluted and fast-paced, so you just kind of have to roll with everything that's going on. But he does feel bad about what's happened to her, so he has to try and save her, but still try and remain loyal to the cult at the same time. But that just creates red flags for the cultists who think he's disloyal. So, of course, his loyalty test comes up, and he has to risk everything. There is a total of 2 official body count in here, but probably 14 or 15 if you count all the cultists that end up or don't end up in trouble. I don't know. It's a little unclear. The ending's a bit vague, but the very end really annoyed me because it was kind of a stupid add-on. So just shave off the like last 2 seconds and the movie would have been fine. But in the end, the movie is just okay. It's not something I'd seek out, but if it was on TV, I'd probably watch it. It's short. It's very fast-paced. Stuff keeps going. They're advancing the plot constantly. It's not a traditional horror movie in the modern sense because there's not a lot of jump scares. It's more of a supernatural type movie where there's elements of horror, but it's not actually scary. It's just about this guy that gets involved in a cult. So more of a thriller in a way, but not really that thrilling either. But the pacing is great. There's not a lot of depth to the characters, and it's obvious the production was rushed. And that's not a coincidence because the company was running out of money and they wanted this movie wrapped so they could sell it fast. And that's why a lot of the cult stuff seems to be incredibly inconsistent. And they're just using generic occultism. They're not actually being specific in any way. This devil god thing seems to be pervasive throughout the story, but it also looks like they changed the script at some point because she calls herself a witch, and there's like illusions that she's using some sort of more metaphysical, generic supernatural powers as opposed to like powers granted by a deity. So they're not really consistent with that. So it looks like they changed the script at some point during filming, and it created a lot of bizarre inconsistencies with the way the supernatural stuff is done. There's also some interesting things with the cast in here because Linda Christensen is not only one of the main characters in the story and the antagonist of Donna, who's played by Adrienne Welter. They're actually sisters. And Linda Christensen has a very interesting history because she was the first Bond girl from a TV movie of Casino Royale they did in 1954. And this TV adaptation made it so that she was the first Bond girl, beating Ursula Andress out by 8 years for first filmed on-screen Bond girl. She was also married to Tyrone Powers for a while. And a lot of these actors had pretty good careers. Robert Alta was a popular TV actor doing bit parts mostly. He's also the father of Alan Alda from MASH, but he had a pretty lengthy career. He was on Days of Our Lives and a bunch of other stuff. Same with Jean Carmen. She was a popular TV and movie bit part actress for a long time. And Gertrude Astor, who played one of the cultists in here, was a silent movie star. She was in a bunch of movies. 358 acting credits on IMDb. Mostly bit part stuff, but as it happens, she was the first actress to sign a contract with Universal Films in 1915. And her career involved playing a lot of gold diggers, weirdly. But the most recognizable person in this movie is Neil Hamilton, because he played Commissioner Gordon in the 1960s Batman show. And it took me a second because he looks so much younger in this, but he was also in a couple of Tarzan movies back in the 30s where he played Harry Holt. And again, he was another one that had a huge career. So there are a lot of very very famous people, or at least highly recognizable people in this movie. And it's kind of a throwaway movie that most people have never heard of. So it was nice to see a lot of really decent actors in kind of one of these low budget, almost forgettable B movies. And again, it's not the most memorable thing you're gonna ever see, and the very, very end is stupid, but it's very fast paced, it's pretty fun, and I didn't hate it. I didn't love it either, but it's not something I'll probably ever seek out. But if it comes on TV, it's definitely something I'd watch. So if you find yourself seeing this sitting in a discount bin on DVD at like a flea market or something, you might want to pick it up. If you're a big horror movie fan, this definitely has some horror elements to it, but it's not scary. And if more likely you're going to stumble across it on a streaming service or in a multi-pack of DVDs, in which case I would say add it into the queue, but I don't think it would be something I would seek out to watch unless I had a lot of free time on my hands and wanted to kill an hour and 11 minutes. So I'm not going to recommend it, but I'm not going to say that it was the trashiest thing I've ever seen, because the effects were pretty well done, the actors were all solid, and it has a lot of weird 6 degrees of separation for actors from all the way from the silent era to the 70s. So it just sort of exists. It's just one of those films that if you come across it, I would say check it out, but don't seek it out. It's not that good. It's not very memorable, but it's a fun way to kill an hour. That's gonna do it for this one. Thank you so much for listening and supporting the channel. If you enjoyed the episode, please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss future reviews. If you'd like to help the channel out in other ways, links are in the description to various support methods. And as always, we hope to see you on the next one.